right, this is your introduction to the Aquamara campaign. Clever name, huh? Aquamara, water, sea. I'm not going to dump some insane amount of lore on you and try to get you to memorize a bunch of names. I know enough about how learning works to know that that's not realistic. And I tell you a little bit of a story of how the campaign got started, a few of the details, just the broadest of contexts. This is mainly for my fellow Dungeon Masters players. If you're any of my players, even from the other campaign, because I do I double up some of my material sometimes. Abandon now. Get out of here. Go. This is not for you. There are going to be major spoilers and like way above the table talking about what I'm doing in this campaign. So get out of here. Last chance. Are they gone? Okay, we can talk. So I started this campaign a few years ago, and this was after I'd already warmed up with this group on a one shot that lasted, I think, 3 sessions, and a module that took us, I think, about a year to get through. Maybe the Horde of the Dragon Queen. I mean, I can't tell you enough. This is true of both my groups, Aquamara and Thaldor, that these are just the best people to play with. I am truly privileged and blessed and fortunate to have 2 ongoing successful campaigns with such engaged players. So the Aquamara campaign is the older of the 2. And I started it a few years ago, and it came about because I was rewatching Firefly. And of course, it's just, and I know I'm not saying anything revolutionary here, but you look at Firefly, you look at the makeup of the characters in it, and it is a D&D campaigning group with a fighter and a barbarian and a cleric, and it's got all of the, and we might disagree a little bit on who is what and some multi-classing, but it is, I liked the conceit, the basic premise of a run and gun campaign of a ragtag bunch of misfits on a ship running into trouble one step ahead of some kind of empire or a dynasty or something. That was the structure that I wanted, and it just started from there. Practically speaking, for you dungeon masters out there, old or new, here's what I found really worked for us, and that campaign worked for me as a dungeon master, is starting off with a module. I purchased the Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and I needed some maritime stuff. I needed some stats for ships and how is this going to work? How can I, because yes, I do homebrew, but at the same time, there are, elements that maybe the D&D lore or engine, game system doesn't quite cover. So, you need to fill in the gaps, but also I don't want to break the game by doing anything terribly unbalanced. Ghosts of Saltmarsh was my jam, and it was great. It in the early days of a campaign, even if you're homebrewing, here's my direct advice, is start with a module that has a pre-written adventure, a whole bunch of NPCs, non-player characters for the dungeon master to inhabit, to control, to play, and a setting. Don't forget the setting. Like, it is so much of the creative heavy lifting done for you that you can think bigger picture and concentrate more on story elements and just taking care of the characters and telling a story for them at the table. It's all about that cognitive load. What do you need to handle, and what can you offload to? And I recommend books. I do. This is my bias. This is my preference. Even where it comes to AI or any online material, do be careful as a dungeon master that you don't overwhelm yourself with material. And then at the table, it becomes a whole bunch of there is a thing for that. Let me look it up. Whereas if you are loosely prepared with a net underneath you, the material is there, but keep a loose grip. Make sure that there isn't so much lore and so many specifics that it prevents you from a little loosey-goosey yes and improvisation at the table. There's the juice, there's the life. That's what really is exciting for the players. And never mind that I do think there is a, when something extraordinary happens, there's a sort of impressive kind of mentalist, trick where I think maybe the players want to know. It's like, how long did you have this planned, Mr. Dungeon Master? Is this where you wanted us to go all along, or is this just a really clever thing? Don't worry about that. Honestly, don't. Whatever happens at the table, as long as it's reasonably consistent with what has come before, it will appear like magic. Like you have done this, you have pulled a rabbit out of your hat, and the rabbit had been foreshadowed all along when you think about it, and it connects with all the other rabbits that came before. It'll happen. You don't have to worry about that too much. So Aquamara is to create a D&D version of Firefly. I went to Ghosts of Saltmarsh to begin with as my first module, and we spent a lot of time in that world. I expected it to be more get on the ship, go to a new location, possibly get every session was going to be kind of adventure of the week, monster of the week kind of stuff, but they stayed in Saltmarsh for quite a while, which was fine. I think it's a testament to the story hooks that I gave them that compelled them to stay where they are to resolve issues, and we'll get into the specifics of the main conflicts in a little bit, maybe next video. But Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and then and now it has turned into, like, they have a ship and they've gone to a variety of locations, and all of this is taking place on the world of Aquamara. That's what the world is called, because it is largely a water world. This is what I'm using to stand in for space. In Firefly, it's flying all over the galaxy to location, world. From a narrative point of view, it makes no difference if they're in space or if they're on an ocean. It's an ocean world with just thousands of islands. It's mainly water, and then all these little mini continents or islands dotted about. And in the center of this one particular corner of the world that they're in, it is ruled, or has up until now been ruled, by an organization just simply called the Dynasty. Don't be too precious about naming things. Dynasty is fine. That's your empire. That is your power structure. But of course, there's trouble a brewing. The main conflict, the main issue that was uncovered in Saltmarsh and has driven a lot of the narrative so far is that there is a civilization of elves who live some distance away over the horizon, and they're a very insular society, very, to the point of xenophobia, nobody in or out. And but they make all the best stuff, all of the best silks and the best, liquor was coming out of the Elven domain. Again, don't be precious about names. It's just the Elven domain. In a nutshell, the whole first act of the campaign, this got them pretty much to about level 10, like 8, 9, or 10. Because reasons. All right, like, here's what I did. Like, history is a great storehouse for these stories, right? It's a simple remapping or reskinning of, if you're familiar with this, the Opium Wars. What it is the Elven domain was soaking up all the silver of the world and exporting all of this stuff, and there was nothing the rest of the world really needed to sell to them. So the silver kept, flowing into the Elven domain, and it wouldn't flow back out. So some nefarious jerks got the idea that if we created this particular drug that I called Phaex, the Fae experience, Phaex, that is especially addictive to elves, they could get the Elven domain hooked on Phaex. It's the only thing they would buy for them, and then silver would start flowing back out. Little did they know that all the while, and by all the while I mean the past 1,000 years or so, which is how long the peoples of Aquamara have been on Aquamara, because 1,000 years ago they all came through this great series of portals on their ships. They were fleeing something from their old world. They came through portals to Aquamara 1,000 years ago. that's the brief history. But ever since then, the elves have been pretty, separated, all the other peoples of the world, and the elves have been soaking up all the silver. The rest of the peoples of the world, or some peoples of the world, get them hooked on Phaex. The elves are not happy about this. Unbeknownst to everybody, these mythical creatures that I think, honestly, most people thought were just like fairy tale nonsense, these mythical creatures called dragons, had in fact made it through the portals and been brought over by the elves, bred to maturity, raised to maturity within the elven domain, and then finally, when they'd had enough of this Phaex nonsense, poof, the dragons came, the Air Force came out and just started laying waste to whatever was in their reach. To the point where we're sitting now is there is a siege of Mara Prime, the seat of the dynasty. Great big flotillas of these basically aircraft carriers with dragons on them that are surrounding Mara Prime, and that is where the war sits now. Meanwhile, the adventurers have been off doing adventures. There's so much to tell you, but I'm well over my 10 minutes now. So that's Aquamara. Ocean world. Everybody showed up 1,000 years ago. There's a whole grand cosmology that we haven't even touched yet, but the main plot, the main conflict thus far has been that the Elven domain were on their own. There were factions who were getting, annoyed that all the silver was flowing into the Elven domain. They get them hooked on Phaex, lots of silver flowing out, lots of smuggling, lots of ne'er-do-wells, but the elves finally just had it and have just been stomping all over whoever they can reach with their Air Force of dragons. And I'm preparing for a session this coming Saturday or Sunday this weekend. I'm preparing for a session this weekend wherein, after being off even on a different plane of existence, and there's a whole story there, being off on a different plane of existence, the Ark, the ship of my adventurers, is going to come plunking back down right. They're going to bamf right into the middle of Mara Prime itself, thus placing them inside the quarantine zone of this siege, and then wackiness will ensue. So another video later, maybe on my prep and what's going on and some more details. And until then, have a good one, and I hope to see you at the table. Later.